In 2023, a senior United States intelligence officer raised his right hand under oath in front of the United States Congress and made a series of statements that, if true, would rewrite the last 70 years of human history. He said that the United States government has, for decades, been recovering and analyzing objects of non-human origin. He said that some of those recovery operations have included what he called biologics, non-human biological material. He said that the program is real. He said that the program is funded. He said that the program has been deliberately hidden from congressional oversight using a structure of compartmentalized access designed to make discovery by anyone outside the program almost impossible. His name is David Grusch. Until shortly before his testimony, he was a former member of the National Reconnaissance Office and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. He was a senior officer with a top-secret clearance and a chain of Inspector General protections that allow whistleblowers to bring classified information forward through legally sanctioned channels. He brought it forward.
And in the months that followed, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, NASA, and Congress did something that has not happened in 70 years. They started releasing files. This is the story of what was hidden, what was released, and what they still are not letting us see. To understand what was just declassified, you have to understand the 70-year machinery that produced it. In 1952, the United States Air Force opened a program called Project Blue Book. Its stated mission was to evaluate reports of unidentified flying objects in the airspace of the United States and determine whether they posed a threat to national security. Its quieter mission was something different. The Air Force needed a public-facing file room where every UFO report could be funneled, examined, and, where possible, explained away. A controlled release valve, a pressure regulator. Project Blue Book ran for 17 years.
By the time it closed in 1969, it had accumulated 12,618 reports of unidentified objects in American airspace. The Air Force, working with a panel of academic consultants known as the Robertson Panel, classified the vast majority of those reports as misidentified aircraft, weather phenomena, satellites, planets, and the occasional outright hoax. But 701 of them, almost 6%, were classified differently. Those reports were labeled unidentified. Not weather, not aircraft, not satellite, not hoax, not Venus, not the moon, not anything that anyone investigating at the highest level of the United States Air Force could explain. 701 objects observed at close range, on radar, by trained military pilots and trained ground observers in the airspace of the most surveilled country on Earth that the United States military could not identify. The official conclusion of Project Blue Book, when it was wound down in 1969, was that none of the unidentified objects posed a threat to national security and that no further study was warranted. Project Blue Book was closed. The files were sent to the National Archives. The case was, publicly, considered shut. Quietly, the work continued. In 2007, a senator named Harry Reid quietly inserted a line item into the United States Defense Appropriations Bill. The line item established a program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The acronym was AATIP. The program received $22 million in initial funding. It was housed inside the Defense Intelligence Agency. It was unacknowledged in the public defense budget. It existed inside what is called the black budget, the portion of U.S. government spending that is classified, audited only by a small handful of cleared committee members, and not subject to public disclosure. The official purpose of AATIP, on the rare occasion that anyone was willing to describe it on the record, was to study advanced aerospace threats, meaning the next generation of foreign military aircraft and propulsion systems. The actual purpose of AATIP, according to its own director, was to study what he called anomalous aerospace phenomena, vehicles operating in our airspace that did not match any known propulsion technology on Earth, friendly or hostile. The director's name was Luis Elizondo. He resigned from the program in 2017, citing what he described as excessive secrecy and active obstruction of the program's findings by senior Pentagon officials. When he resigned, he took 3 videos with him. The videos had been captured by United States Navy fighter pilots on military-grade forward-looking infrared systems during routine training exercises off the coasts of California and Florida between 2004 and 2015. Those videos were released to the public in 2017. The Pentagon confirmed they were authentic. The most famous of those videos came from an encounter off the coast of San Diego in November 2004. The aircraft carrier USS Nimitz and its strike group were running a training exercise. The Nimitz's radar was tracking a series of objects that had appeared over the previous 2 weeks at altitudes of 80,000 feet, far above any known aircraft cruise altitude, and were descending vertically to sea level in less than a second. To put that in perspective, an object falling from 80,000 feet to sea level in 1 second is moving at approximately 50,000 miles per hour. The fastest manned aircraft in the United States inventory, the SR-71 Blackbird, maxed out at around 2,200. The objects observed by the Nimitz strike group were moving more than 20 times faster than the fastest jet in the American arsenal, and they were doing it with no visible exhaust, no sonic boom, and no propulsion signature that anyone on the ship could identify. On November 14th, 2 FA-18 Super Hornets were vectored to investigate. One of the pilots was Commander David Fravor, a graduate of the Navy's elite weapons school, a former commanding officer of a strike fighter squadron, and one of the most respected aviators in the United States Navy. What Fravor and his wingman observed that morning was an object roughly 40 feet long, shaped like a Tic Tac mint, hovering above the surface of the Pacific Ocean. It was white. It had no wings. It had no exhaust. It had no markings. When Fravor attempted to close on it, the object accelerated, paced his aircraft for approximately 5 seconds, and then disappeared off his radar at a speed his fire control system could not measure. Roughly 60 seconds later, the object reappeared on the carrier's radar, 60 miles away. Crossing 60 miles in 60 seconds is a sustained velocity of about 3,600 miles per hour, faster than any aircraft on Earth, without breaking the sound barrier, without leaving any trail. This is on record. This is on Pentagon-released video. This is testified to, under oath, by a Navy commander with nothing to gain. The official Department of Defense statement on the Tic Tac, released in 2020, was that the object remained, quote, unidentified. The Tic Tac is the encounter people know. There are encounters they don't. In March of 1967, a flight of intercontinental ballistic missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana went offline. The missiles were Minuteman-class nuclear weapons, each tipped with a 1.2 megaton warhead. They were, at that moment in the Cold War, considered to be the most consequential weapon system on the planet. They were also, by every operational metric, hardened against failure. Each missile had redundant power, redundant guidance, and an independent safety bus. The probability of all of them going offline simultaneously due to natural causes was considered by the engineers who designed the system to be effectively 0. They all went offline simultaneously. According to declassified testimony from the missile launch officers on duty that morning, including Captain Robert Salas, the missiles went offline in the same minute that base security personnel reported a large red glowing object hovering directly above the missile silos. The object was observed by multiple ground personnel. It was tracked, briefly, on radar. It did not respond to standard military hailing procedures. After several minutes, it departed the area at a speed that radar operators described as, quote, instantaneous. Within an hour of the object's departure, every missile in the flight had been verified offline. Air Force technicians spent the next several days attempting to determine what had happened. The official conclusion, recorded in the base maintenance log, was that the failure was caused by circumstances beyond our control. A near-identical incident occurred 8 days later at Echo Flight, also at Malmstrom. A similar object, the same outcome. These incidents were classified for decades. They were finally confirmed, on the record, by the Air Force in 2010. What is now known is this. On at least 2 separate occasions, in the Cold War's most dangerous decade, an unidentified object hovered over American nuclear weapons and shut them down. The capability that this implies, being able to disable hardened, military-grade nuclear infrastructure remotely, is a capability the United States, even today, does not possess. Which brings us back to David Grusch.
In July of 2023, Grusch testified under oath before the United States House Subcommittee on National Security. He said that during his time at the National Reconnaissance Office, he had been read into the existence of what he called a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, meaning a program in which the United States government recovers downed, unidentified aerial vehicles, transports them to secure facilities, and attempts to back-engineer their technology. He said the program is real. He said it is funded. He said it has, on the record, recovered material that, quote, is of non-human origin. He said he had personally interviewed 40 individuals with direct knowledge of the program. He said that some of those interviews are documented in classified Inspector General filings that have been provided to Congress through legally protected whistleblower channels. He said he was prepared to provide further details to any cleared member of Congress in a secure setting. In the months since his testimony, Congress has held additional hearings. The Department of Defense has stood up a new office, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, explicitly tasked with reviewing historical UAP records. NASA has launched its own independent UAP study group. The White House has been pressed repeatedly on the record to acknowledge or deny the existence of crash retrieval programs. The White House has repeatedly declined to do either. A bipartisan amendment in the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act mandated the release of historical UAP-related records to the public. The Pentagon has now released thousands of pages. The released material is, by almost every assessment, the easy material. The encounter reports, the radar logs, the pilot debriefs, the case files that had already been partially public for years. What has not been released, and what insiders, including Grusch, have said is being deliberately withheld, includes the following.
The locations of suspected crash retrieval sites. The names of the private defense contractors that, according to whistleblower testimony, have been hosting reverse engineering programs on behalf of the Department of Defense for decades. The biological analysis files, the propulsion analysis files, the metallic composition reports for the recovered material that, according to several reports, includes alloys and isotopic ratios that have never been observed in nature on Earth. In other words, the released material is the public version of the story. The redacted material is the actual story. The Department of Defense's official position is that no such material exists. The Department of Defense's official position is also that, if such material existed, it would not be at liberty to confirm or deny its existence in a public setting. Both of these positions cannot be true simultaneously. We don't know everything. We probably never will. The pattern of declassification, redaction, partial release, and deliberate obfuscation that surrounds this topic is a pattern that has been refined over 70 years by people whose careers depend on its continuation. What we do know, what is now on the public record, sworn testimony, Pentagon-released footage, Air Force confirmed nuclear incidents, and congressional hearings, is enough to make one thing absolutely clear. There is something in our airspace that we cannot explain. There is something in our archives that we are not being shown. And there is something in the gap between those two things that whoever is responsible would prefer we never put together. Until next time, keep looking up and tell me what you think they're hiding.